Welcome to ZOOMERTIMES TV. And here's your host, Anita Finley.
Good morning, everybody. You know, we do a lot of ZOOMERTIMES interviews, but whenever I have Monk Yun Rou on, I just kind of quiver. It's so special to have this man. And I could never tell you all that he is or all that he's done. So I'm going to do away with it. I'm just going to go over one of the books we just celebrated in our last month's issue, which was, of course, July. And it's called Turtle Planet. Here's the book, Turtle Planet. It is absolutely, for me, spellbinding, I guess is the word. I was bound with it, but it was spellbinding. And I just hope people will buy it because you will feel stuff that you never thought you even felt. So let's talk about it, Monk, and let's talk about why you wrote it, first of all.
So there's three things to mention in connection with the why. The first is that there is a long tradition in every religious tradition, whether it's Christianity or Judaism or Islam or Buddhism or Daoism, there's always a tradition of someone who has a cork popping experience. The top of their head comes off and they suddenly understand more deeply the world than the people around them. And they want to share the insights that they have learned. They want to, it's almost as if we were on Star Trek, we'd want to have a Vulcan mind meld. Hey, look, put my hands on your face and you can my mind to your mind. We want you to feel this. But unfortunately, the minute we go into language and talking, we lose the direct experience. In any case, many of these direct experiences were the visitation of an entity, a voice. Physicians these days would say that, Moses was schizophrenic. Jesus and Muhammad hearing the voices in their head is a sign of mental illness. And whether or not that's true, the wisdom and the insights that came from those voices, whatever their source, and maybe the source was the deeper part of the human mind, the knowing that we all have, but we ignore. Anyway, regardless of your position on supernatural elements to this, visitations from whether they are saints, gods, or in the case of the Chinese tradition, so-called immortals, are part and parcel of religious messages. And in Taoism, there are many sects of Taoism which have come up over the multi-thousand-year history of the religion, in which some person is visited by a so-called immortal. And immortals in Chinese lore can be real people who were effectively canonized. It's kind of the Chinese version of a saint. Or they could be fictitious characters that have been woven into the folklore of the day. And in this book, I did something that I've wanted to do, which is to share my own voices in my head, to create visitations from very wise and knowing immortals. Because I have had so many turtle pets and been so involved with turtle conservation and study in my life, my career began as an evolutionary biologist, my study. And I've always really liked turtles, so I decided and turtles have a very important role in Taoism. They are a symbol of Taoism, actually. Longevity, the Earth Mother, all these things are characterized by turtles. So I wanted turtles to speak to me as if they were gods or saints and give me messages to share with the reader. The second reason to do it is simply that on account of having such familiarity with turtles, I could have picked anything, but I just chose turtles because I know them best. And the third thing, of course, is that And this is a very big piece of why I wrote the book and the takeaway from the book. We spend far, far too much time, too much of a chunk of our lives, staring at a screen. We spend time in virtual worlds, typing, texting, watching, tapping glass. Our entire consciousness becomes funneled down to a few square inches of glass, actually. And in doing that, we lose touch with the real, actual world. And that is most true in how much we lose touch with nature. We forget that under every log in the forest, there is a world whose ceiling, whose heaven is the bottom of a rotting piece of wood, and whose substrate is moldy, loose soil and the detritus of the forest. We forget that creatures that live under there have no other reference and they don't know anything else. Their whole life takes place there. Universes of conscious behavior and consciousness are all around us. The brains of birds on the wire, fish swimming in the ocean. And we lose an awareness of all that the more time we spend with our so-called devices. So a book like this does something to bring back just a reminder of the presence of nature and the fact that we share this planet with countless trillions of sentient beings. There's a recent book out, I've forgotten the title, came out a little after my book, about the fly. And it essentially argues that the fly has consciousness. Fly feels pain, fly knows family, fly knows who it is, fly knows what it likes to eat and what it doesn't like to eat, understands where it lives, has a home territory. You know, these things in a tiny little pinprick of a brain, which we have long assumed meant that this was just a mindless, natural version of a tiny drone. Turns out not to be true at all. Completely aware, and when you're swatting the fly and chasing the fly, it knows. So one of the big messages of this book is to try to cultivate a new awareness, a returning to what we knew thousands of years ago, but have forgotten.
I want to jump in with something because I'm going to tell you that every once in a while I get what I think is a silverfish. It's a tiny little white insect. Comes into my bathtub and I don't want it. And and usually I'd spray some disinfectant on it and it dies. Since I read the book, I feel very guilty doing this. I feel so sad, and I'm figure, well, do I want it? What should I do with it? Maybe I should just get a little piece of cardboard, put it outside. You have really done something to me with this book, and it sounds crazy, but now discussing the fly, it's kind of like, yes, they all have, I think they all feel something. They all are there. They're something, and yet, it's hard to, it's hard to know what to do, Monk.
One aspect of what you're talking about is the difference between discernment and judgment. I believe we once talked about this before. That is the line between noticing and understanding something. Boy, that fish smells a bit off. Even though I'm eating it in a restaurant, or the oyster, I bring it to my mouth. And something tells me, don't eat that. That's discernment.
Mm-hmm.
Discernment can be, boy, that's a beautiful woman. Boy, that's a beautiful man. Boy, that's a beautiful sunset. when we cross the line from discernment to judgment, we are only a step away from bias, bigotry, prejudice, and all kinds of other problems. When Hitler trained his soldiers, he didn't train them, but when he had them trained his soldiers to be capable of committing crimes against humanity, sewing children together for experiments, turning people into cakes of ash and soap and so on. He did this by training his soldiers to move from discernment to judgment. That is, to look at these people, Jews, gypsies, gay people, whatever he was after at the time, and to make a judgment. Those aren't actually people. Those are rodents. And all I'm doing here is exterminating rodents. This was the only way that he could get otherwise normal young men to commit atrocities. Once we add this emotion of judgment, we color things. So, for example, to your point about the silverfish, why is it that we would celebrate a butterfly and stomp on a cockroach?
Oh, that's a good one.
So these are two insects, right? Sharing our world. And they're both going about their living, doing their thing.
Yeah.
One will aggressively chase with a can of Raid or a shoe.
Yeah.
And the other will make books about beautiful pictures.
Yeah.
Discernment says, look, they're different. They're not the same. But judgment is the next step, which goes, that's a disgusting creature, and it's dirty, and it's filthy, and I hate it, and I'm going to kill it. I'm going to end its life right now. Stomp. And the other is, what a beautiful, delicate creature. I'm going to follow it through the forest with my $10,000 zoom lens, right?
Yeah.
Somehow, that kind of thing, it's almost impossible to avoid some judgment, but it's better to dwell in discernment. And we can say, boy, there's a cockroach, and boy, there's a butterfly, and boy, that butterfly has nice colors. But the moment we go past that and we say, the cockroach deserves to die, I'm going to kill it.
Yeah.
That's a judgment. And this is exactly what led to, in another version, this is what led to slavery and oppression and genocide and all kinds of other things, terrible things that we do, including our war against the natural world.
Yeah.
We are killing planet Earth because of our judgments, such as this condo and golf club are worth much more than this beautiful forest.
Yeah. I want to jump in about something, though. I don't want time to run out about the turtles, because you were talking, I was thinking, turtles are not hated, though. I don't think people hate turtles like you were just talking about. Some hate that. Turtles seem to be, I don't know, we just look at them and I think we appreciate them, don't we? Other animals don't. That's why they were hurt. And of course, I know about the turtle soup and turtle steak, but generally, in the Galapagos and places like that, and places that you had turtle farms, aren't people more friendly to turtles?
The Galapagos archipelago was a way station in the middle of the ocean for hundreds and hundreds of whaling ships, especially in the 17 and 1800s. Those whalers, those ships and their crew, would come by the Galapagos and collect thousands and thousands of live tortoises, bring them on board their ships,
Oh, don't, I know what you're gonna tell me. I'm gonna be upset.
And they would keep them in the hold of their ships for months at a time so as to provide the crew fresh meat.
Okay.
We created a genocide against them, which is
Oh,
why they are
God.
now an endangered species. In Asia, as you read in Turtle Planet, turtles are hunted, collected, and ground up. Their shells used to make Chinese medicine.
Yeah.
In the south of the United States, I have often, I'm sorry to say, seen crackers driving pickup trucks aiming for turtles crossing the road simply to hear the shells go pop.
Mm. I
So
shouldn't
I
have
don't
gone
think that,
there.
yeah, I don't think that turtles are immune to
Oh,
prejudices. I just think that most people don't think about them at all, unless they have some special reason. Chinese medicine that, supposedly cures cancer or settles your stomach or whatever, or live meat for a whaling voyage where you make it your business to extinguish other even more intelligent sentient planet. So it's some people are turtle people who appreciate them and like them. Some people admire their durability, their longevity, the fact that they carry their home around on their back and can therefore be at home anywhere, anytime. There are many things to admire about them. And their behavior, of course, is far more complex and their intelligence much deeper than people normally give them credit for having and being. But overall, they are far from immune uh, to the rapier swords of the human race.
yeah. I think what was unusual, I don't think I've read a book, maybe I don't remember a book, where the author talks to the animal the way you did. It was very sophisticated. I learned so much. I felt so much compassion. You explained so many things. It was really brilliant. And in the back, I should tell everybody, Monk names all the turtles. A lot of them. I mean, I had no idea there were so many turtles, but you certainly have been I guess, an astronomer of turtles.
Yeah, there are 300 odd species of turtles in the world, and I have kept and or worked with, that means in my own home or in a zoo or aquarium or places I've worked, in my young life particularly, um, maybe a third of those species I've had some experience, hands-on experience with. And these days, um, I'm a little busy with other things, but I still keep a handful of turtles. And our viewers are thinking, after all this conservation talk, he keeps turtles in his house. Let me make two explanatory points about that. One is that the turtles I keep are largely extinct in the world. They've been extinguished better, by mostly the Chinese medicine practices that I mentioned earlier. So people collect them willy-nilly and grind them up. So they're Asian turtles. They're lost to the world, but conservation efforts of zoos, aquaria, and a handful of who, so that they don't disappear from the planet, are the reason why there are any left. The other reason, which is maybe not more important, but I think as important, and this is something that I talk about with my son, who's a biologist, the act of caring, the compassionate study the living creature in an intimate, daily, and relentless way is compassion work. For me, it's monk work. For other people, it just expands the consciousness to have the care and the noticing to know, boy, you know, that little guy's not eating. Why is he not eating? Everything seems right. The temperature is 3 degrees too low.
Huh.
Or, boy, he doesn't look this great this morning. He's drying out. I thought I gave him enough water, but apparently not. I need to moisten his container, and 1,000 other details which contribute to the successful husbandry of an exotic animal.
Well said. Well said. I mean, you're just encouraging me now to really get a turtle and take care of it. I'm going to get a fish and take care of it. I'm in there with you. I really, you know, it's funny thank goodness I have this dog, because I walk the dog and it's in a very natural setting. And I do look at things. I do see the iguana. I do wonder why that poor little thing's alone. Where are his friends? And yeah, I do. And the little chameleons, and also, you know, I observe. I don't have any of them, but I love talking with you. I love you have such a soul, Monk, such a soul.
Thank you. You know, I was thinking about your duck that you mentioned
Yeah.
earlier.
Right. He
I
wasn't
had
there
a-
today, so.
I had a tortoise years ago. It was a yellow-foot tortoise from the Amazon basin. It was a baby, but they grow quite large. Some people say over 100 pounds.
Hmm.
Some people claim even 200 pounds. I don't know that that's true. But in any case, it fell into the swimming pool in my Florida home when I lived there. And I discovered it at the bottom of the pool. It was too late.
Oh,
And I was so upset. I took him out, and he somehow got around the fence and into the pool. It was the only time that ever happened. And I was so upset. I took him and I shook him head down until all the water drained out of his lungs, belly. And I was so determined that he not die, even though he was already gone, that I kept shaking him until all the water was out. And then I sat there with this turtle cupped in my hands, and I did some kind of Chinese Qigong energy exercise that I do. And I sat there with him for about 15, 20 minutes like that. And then he started to move.
really?
And he came back.
Oh my God.
And you know, how dead was he? I don't know. But if I hadn't done all that, there would have been no chance. And he seemed to recover without incident. I had him for years after that. He grew, he was happy and healthy. It's a good memory.
It's a wonderful memory. Do you name your turtles?
You know, from time to time I do. When one warrants something special. I called that one Hector for Hector Camacho, Macho Camacho, the boxer, because he was very aggressive and would push his way around all the other turtles.
Oh, this is so beautiful. So beautiful. How long did it take you to write Turtle Planet?
I was talking to my publisher about the book before I wrote it. I pitched it, said, I want to write a book about turtles. And publisher said, okay, sold. I like books about turtles. And at that moment that I pitched it, I had no idea what I was going to write. And when I sat down to write it, this idea of channeling Chinese immortals so that I could weave in Daoist sort of earth-loving philosophy and express it through the head and the voice of all these turtles. There are 18 of them, if I remember right, in these chapters of the book. And they are in different parts of the world. There's a box turtle is collected in Vietnam and ends up in the home of a sick Chinese woman in Hong Kong and is made into soup for her medicine. There's an alligator snapping turtle that's living on the bottom of a river near the Atlanta airport, suffering the effluent of avgas and oil and things that are polluting the river from the airport, and suffering through the eating three-eyed fish and so on that are living in the river, having been poisoned. And there's a turtle, a giant sea turtle trapped in a net whose conversation with me and spans the last 8 minutes of its life as it runs out of breath and can't get up to breathe. Turtles aren't fish; they need to breathe air. And
I
there
think
are,
he tried to free it, as a matter of fact, too, in the book.
to free it, yeah. So, and these turtles and their situations and their voices enter my consciousness through my meditation session. So I begin each chapter standing in meditation and preparing my mind for the visit from a wise, immortal, a saint, a deity who comes to me in the guise of a turtle. And they say that about us, about people, that we see special things at the end of life or in peak experience moments through the lens of our culture. So, in other words, a Catholic person would see something as a saint or an angel. Someone in an African religion, a folk religion, might see this in a shamanic way, might see a creature. We all, in our brain, we have the same filters that we apply to the world around us. So when we see things a certain way in the world, it's because we have these filters. Some of them we were born with, some of them we learned. And the learned ones, apply to religious experiences. So that's why, a Jew doesn't see Buddha in his or her dying moments, right? Or in mortal threat. And a Buddhist doesn't see the God of the Old Testament. That's so it's all the same experience, but the filter applied is according to what we've learned and what we're familiar with.
And your monk Dan's here, so he's telling us that we've run out of time. But I am going to ask him to ask you to come back maybe next week and keep doing this with you. These are extraordinary interviews. I feel so privileged to see you, to know you, to read your books, and maybe by the next time we talk, I'm going to have another fish and a little turtle, because I want to. Because when I did have a fish, when I got up in the morning, it came to be fed. So I knew he knew something.
Of course, he knows you from Dan and from anybody else. He knows he's hungry.
Right. So Dan, are we finished? Are you going to close us off here?
Yes, in a few minutes.
Okay, we keep going.
We will be closed down in 3 minutes.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, let's just do it till we're closed down. So,
By the way, if you want to get yourself a pet turtle, let's talk about that before you do it, so I can help you.
Okay. So I'll call you. I'll do that. I do want to do that. Definitely.
Yeah,
Wish you could send me one of yours. Go ahead. What?
I have a friend who has a shop in your area.
Good.
Not far from where you are.
Okay, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna name it Monk too. You know that. Oh, Dan, isn't this splendid? I mean,
extraordinary.
Extraordinary.
Yeah.
No, the only other person who I got so much joy from, not this much, but Mother Natasha, who is the mother of love and the religion, and she was always so special too. So whatever it is, Monk, whatever you learned since you were a little boy into all those years of what you did to become a monk and who you are. And so, all right, Dan will call you and set a date, hopefully next week, if you are up to it. We want to hear everything you can possibly say. And we can talk about your other books. It doesn't have to be the Turtle Planet. It can be other things that you've done and want to talk about, okay?
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And
okay, have a great day. Thanks.
Yeah, just know that you are special, and I know that these videos that go out, people will feel the same thing. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Goodbye, everybody. We'll see you at another time.
Bye-bye.